We wake up and immediately start sorting the world into tidy boxes. We decide who belongs in our inner circle, which tasks deserve priority, and what beliefs define our identity. This habit feels necessary for navigating a complex day. We assume that clearer definitions lead to better understanding. Yet, every time we draw a sharp line to separate one group from another, we notice new ambiguities emerging right at the border. The effort to bring clarity ends up producing more confusion. We find ourselves trapped in a cycle where our own mental tools generate the mess they intend to clear away. Categorization is like a mapmaker drawing borders on a shifting sand dune, because the lines exist only until the ground moves beneath them. When we label experiences or people, we freeze a moment that is inherently fluid. This process requires us to ignore the subtle transitions between states. If we label a person as strictly logical, we discard their emotional impulses. If we classify a situation as entirely negative, we overlook potential growth hidden within the struggle. The map we draw dictates how we move, but it fails to capture the terrain itself. We prioritize the symbol over the reality. This creates a disconnect between our mental framework and the actual environment. We become blind to the nuances that do not fit our preselected labels. The more rigid our definitions, the more we struggle when reality refuses to conform. We essentially build a cage for our own perception. We mistake the boundaries we invented for objective truths. This leads to a narrow view of human potential. We end up fighting against the very complexity that defines our existence. Consider a workplace team tasked with evaluating employee performance based on rigid metrics. Managers design specific categories to rank output, believing this creates fairness. They label staff as high performers or low contributors. Soon, the system encounters problems. A high performer misses a deadline because they were helping a struggling colleague. The metric labels this individual as failing, even though their action improved overall team output. The manager faces a dilemma. They must either ignore the nuance to keep the system intact or break their own rules to acknowledge reality. The system fails because it cannot process the collaborative nature of the work. This forces the team to create subcategories, which then generate even more exceptions. The attempt to manage performance through strict labels creates a bureaucratic burden. It drains time that could be spent on actual production. The employees start gaming the system to fit the labels instead of doing their best work. This scenario shows how labels distort the very reality they seek to measure. I see this tendency as a basic survival reflex gone wrong. We fear the unknown, so we label things to feel in control. This impulse provides a temporary sense of stability. However, the cost is a loss of genuine connection with the world. We stop seeing the person in front of us and start seeing a collection of tags. I find it fascinating that we continue to trust these systems despite constant evidence of their failure. We cling to these mental structures because the alternative requires us to accept constant uncertainty. It is difficult to exist in a state where nothing is defined. We want to know exactly where we stand. I suspect this drive to label is a biological trait that our modern environment amplifies. We are not designed for the level of abstraction we demand today. We try to force a fluid world into a static grid. This creates friction in every interaction. We should acknowledge that our labels are just guesses. They tell us more about our own biases than about the people we classify. Can we learn to value the outliers that escape our current definitions? We often mistake our own mental constructs for the permanent architecture of reality. We build these systems to feel safe, yet they frequently leave us feeling isolated from the truth. Perhaps the most honest path involves acknowledging that our labels are temporary conveniences. We can hold our categories loosely. What happens if we stop trying to resolve every ambiguity we encounter? I invite you to notice when you feel the urge to label someone today. Is that label serving you, or is it merely blocking your view?